Hello and welcome to another Sonic Lab. It's about this time of year that we generally talk to Gaz about all matters Steinberg.
Yeah.
And we've actually got one of the brand new AXR4-T, very high resolution Thunderbolt audio interface.
That's right, the T standing for Thunderbolt. There is going to be, I think, alternative versions to connect in the future. Right now it's Thunderbolt only. It's got a lot of connectivity. It's got 4 mic pre's, and I guess one of its big things is it's another collaboration with Rupert Neve.
Right.
The last interface we looked at, which was the AXR4-T,
that was the USB one, wasn't it? Yeah.
USB one, and it had actual Neve transformers in it. Right. You might think there is those transformers in this. There isn't. And actually, what the Neve feature is actually a digital emulation of the Silk circuits now.
Right, and these are done in VCM, which is their virtual circuit modelling, because we spoke to or met one of the engineers when we were in Japan.
Interesting.
And he was talking about the collaboration with Neve.
Ah, right, great. Well, and what the Silk basically is, the Silk is it comes in a red or a blue. And you can just change the colour over. You can apply it or not, and then there's an amount. And essentially what it does is it gives like a flavour onto the 4 mic channels.
Right, so it's just on the 4 mics, right?
Just on 4 mic channels. And it's a flavour, and the blue flavour tends to be brings out sort of more bassier sounds, the red flavour more sort of presence,
it's an analogue console emulation.
Yeah.
Before we get into the details though, it's a 28, 24. Is it 28 in and 24 out, or 24?
Yes, it's got a pair of ADAT inputs and outputs on there. You've got the 4 mic channels, but you've then got also on top of the 4 mic channels, I think, is it 10 line inputs?
6. There's 8 and 8.
8, sorry,
Yeah, and then there's a D-type connector as well.
Yes, so you can imagine that this is well set up to be installed into proper studio kind of thing. And with that in mind as well, look, I mean, it is quite a big old interface, isn't it? It's, we wouldn't necessarily think of this as
kind of got this slightly teasy front panel. We'll do a cutaway to this where you can see inside.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the big thing about this, because it's Thunderbolt, it's got an option card which is running the Thunderbolt interface.
Yes.
But they said, there may well be a USB-C version along, and that interchangeable thing is the thing that makes it future-proof, because this is a very high-resolution audio interface. That's the kind of that's the key here. That's what we're getting.
384K is
up to,
right.
And how many bits?
32-bit integer. So we've had 32-bit float for a while, but integer is the, essentially, I guess, more dynamic range, as if 24-bit wasn't enough.
Okay.
Right. But and 384K as a sample rate isn't supported in Cubase, which is the way we've got this hooked up at the moment. 192 is maximum. But if you do use Nuendo, then you can access those lofty sample rates.
And some of the features in here, like the control of the internal DSP stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it's designed to kind of work with Nuendo and Cubase, right? To have that kind of integration in software.
Yeah, and in fact, if you are a Cubase and Nuendo user, this may be one of its greatest kind of qualities is its integration, and we'll look at that in a moment. But first, if we see on the screen, this is the the control mixer application,
right?
And we can see this Silk here.
Those are the first 4 channels, which are the mic channels.
You can see switch between the red and the blue. Also, you have got. There's a Yamaha DSP chip in here, as you mentioned, and then that, unlike the UAD thing, that DSP, you can actually set up to record the DSP if you want, but the DSP is mostly focused around a monitoring, using reverb for monitoring purposes. And similarly, if we look in this effects here, we've got a channel strip that we can call up.
This is the morphing channel strips that they're talking about, right?
Yep. We saw this on the AXR4-T.
And this is on per channel. Is it all the mic pre's, or is it on all of the analog inputs?
This is on all the analog inputs.
So we can have a compressor channel strip on every input.
Yes.
And that would be something you would record through, is it? Or is it just monitoring through?
It's optional.
Ah, okay,
yeah,
right.
It's optional. So there's like this new Yamaha compressor.
Like an LA2A. Let's not beat around the bush.
1176.
1176, I do beg your pardon. So these again are these, presumably these are the VCM emulations, which let's not forget. I mean, Yamaha have been doing virtual circuit modelling for about as long as it's been around, so they're quite good at it.
And and they do sound really good. They really do sound good. And I mean, the reverb is the venerable Rev X model, which I'll open that in a moment. But there's also this new EQ as well, the EQ601. Nice. Yeah, and so this stuff is high quality, and it's the preamps are what they call the hybrid preamps, which are
they come from their console, don't they?
They do.
The top of the range
console. Yes. So
PM10 was it? I think
something like that. But this doesn't have, as I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have those Neve transformers, which is a bit of a shame because I really like that.
Well, we should also say this is actually quite a high-end.
It is.
It's a couple of grand, so we are talking kind of top end.
And it feels it though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It is a very nicely looking, nice chunky looking thing.
Yeah, it is definitely. And the way the controls feel, it's definitely, it does ooze quality. Okay, so we can see on this mixer anyway, this kind of thing's pretty typical, and here's our different line outs, and we can create
so this is all the multiple. This is like a lot of sound cards will have a separate mixing kind of application, which is it's okay. That I'd like to see tighter integration, which I believe you're about to show us.
That's what I'm going to show, and you're absolutely right. And I think this really impressed me. This, so if I was to add an audio track, for instance, here, I'm just going to bring in a mono track. Now, in our inspector on the left here, typically this is where we see our fader and where we, can get at our inserts. There's a new tab appeared, which is called the AXR4. And if I drop down that now, for that track,
you can set the input.
Phantom power pads, gains. And look here, this is the silk, and I can swap between the red and the blue.
And it's updating on the front panel and everything.
Yep, so I can insert that EQ, so I've got my monitor channel here, and I can choose headphone, various things to do with headphone monitoring. Typically things that you'd need to come out of the software into the application or go to the front panel. It's all kind of inside.
That I could see is, if you're a Cubase kind of person, I could see that be a big sell, right?
But it is a bit weird to set up, I have to say. You have to make sure I use the control room. I always use a control room. I typically don't have anything set to the outputs. So I normally have the outputs set to not connected. However, if we come back and look here,
it's gone.
It's gone. There's no sign of the AXR4.
Oh, that's the sort of thing I could imagine you'd be scratching your head for a while.
Yes, and also so you have to make sure you have an output, and bang, you can see it's reappeared.
Nasty little gotcha.
It is, and also you do have to be aware as well. Your default inputs are going to be like to a default stereo input, and unless you've got that. Actually ganged.
You need to configure it all up, basically.
That's what you need to do. And, but if you're going to be investing in a high-end audio interface, you're going to want to do that.
I did notice that there's no kind of master volume control on this for sort of control room. Is that something that's just done in software then?
You can absolutely do that in software. Because I've got the control room enabled, now, as of recent versions of Cubase, you can open this sidebar here, and now within the sidebar now you can have the control room displaying in this right-hand side. So this volume control that down the bottom here, this is like our kind of monitor level.
Right.
However, on the unit, the hardware unit itself, if you hit whichever menu you're in, if you hit escape and you're back to like the kind of home page, then adjusting this is going to be...
Because it's always good to have a kind of, oh my God, I need to turn it down quick.
Yeah. But bear in mind, you do need to remember to hit that home.
It's perhaps one process removed from that kind of hearing damage or loss of tweeters.
Yeah, I would like to see a dedicated knob for volume. However, this is a rack unit. It's a deep rack unit. It's not really that desktop friendly, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that most people who would go for something like this, they would be putting it into a rack unit and have monitor controllers and various other things that are more in your kind of workflow. But everything is accessible from this front panel, and there's a color screen here. So, I can go into my channels. My monitoring setups, my headphones.
So you can program the routing from there if that's what you want.
Yes.
If your life is not busy enough, perhaps.
Yeah. So, the stuff is accessible. There's 2 headphone outputs there, and those...
Are there dedicated monitor outputs on this, or is it all just...
No. And
I guess that's just a labelling thing, though, isn't it?
It's just a labelling thing. Yeah. And Cubase, with the way that the control room, you come in here in the control room setup, you can add these, you can add things, you can add your Q mixes and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. But it seems like really, to get the most out of this, Cubase on Nuendo is going to be where your ideal pairing is going to be, right?
Absolutely, you can absolutely use it with whatever music, with whatever software. But this kind of,
I suppose the other thing that you might see this happening is in a mastering studio where if you got 32-bit 384K,
yeah.
Those sort of converters don't come along very often, do they? So,
no.
I think these are AKMs in here, aren't they?
Yeah.
There are generally inside any equipment, there are like 3 or 4 flavours of converters, and these are AKMs.
Yeah. Yeah, so the converters are really high quality, as are the preamps. The preamps sound, really terrific. With the silk disengaged, then just they are clear, neutral preamps. Right. And I suppose the silk... being able to make the preamps...
it's like giving it a bit of flavour,
like a flavour, a character.
Or boom or something, I suppose.
Yeah, and actually, what I do quite like is that you've got either a choice of just red or blue.
Right.
And an amount of that.
You can't have both at the same time.
No.
Ah, okay. Well,
you could on different channels, but
you'd have to split the channels.
Yeah, split on channels. But I quite like that, though, because it's... when you're in a session and you don't really get necessarily a lot of time to make qualitative assessments between lots and lots of choices, with it just being basically red or blue, and with them being red more geared towards things like vocals or things that you want a presence peak, or the blue to being things that you want to have a bigger bottom end, that decision-making process
makes it a bit quicker.
Is quite easy, yeah.
So, I mean, you've taken this through its paces. I mean,
yes.
As is the usual kind of the way of things when Gaz reviews an audio interface.
Yeah.
Generally, we can expect a track. You've done precisely the same thing. So you did a session with a full band,
and also recording at 192K 32-bit. So I was curious to see what that high sample rate and high bit depth would actually mean to the sound quality. And,
right. Well, I guess at this point we say roll VT.
Taurus man grafting on the farm, winter calling me to arms, marching through the fields, heading off to still we carry on.
line and advance in time to seize control and overflow.
scarred and broken down. Silence. Yet I hear a sound. Angels open up the sky and lead me through the open door. Light things wide and wonderful. My duty to kill our mate for king and queen and country, to wear my medals proudly and salute to the sun, and salute to the sun. Taurus man was born to blend, bred as an automaton, served without a question why, now blankly stares up at the sky.
Excellent, Gaz. Nice sort of epic rock. A little bit of Manic Street Preachers in there, I would say, as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, name of the song, name and the band, of course.
Okay, band is called Rocket Gold Stars. God, that's a long-term band of mine. And the song's called Born Taurus Man, song about cannon fodder.
Okay, sounds like a very dense lyrical subject. Talk me through what happened there. You know, what was the process?
Yes, so we basically would set up the microphones. We knew how to play the song, so we, typically, we knew exactly what we were sort of looking for. So when we would set up an instrument to record, we would then make a decision if we were going to use the silk and if we were going to use it in blue mode or red mode.
Right.
And I quite like that narrowing down of just blue or red. And then we would listen and then just sort of pretty much choose an amount.
Because you can blend the amount of...
That's right, yeah. So on the control, when you select it, you just choose the texture from, whatever up to 10, 1 to 10. And making that, listening, going, what does it sound like on red? What does it sound like on blue? And blue is like a bass. It definitely gives a big bass, kind of like
so
makes
extra
things
bloom,
sound
right.
extra bloom, yeah, in the low end. Whereas the red brings out a bit more sort of like the sparkle and a bit more kind of like air. And
so you were using dynamics or condensers or a mix of the both?
Mixture, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And in fact, one of the things about the song was because we were recording an entire drum kit, there's only 4 channels on the AXR4, and everything that you heard went through the AXR4. There was no other additional equipment used. But with there only being 4 preamps, we were a little bit stumped about what to do regarding the extra mics that you needed to record the drums. But then we thought, well, if it's 32-bit, maybe one of the things we could do here is just actually take the tom mics with dynamic mics
just straight into the line inputs. And then
oh, right, well, I'll run them at -10.
Yeah.
Extra sensitivity.
Yeah.
What, and then just crank up the gain in the...
Yeah.
And I suppose that's the thing. I mean, because,
Yeah.
32-bit,
Yeah.
the dynamic range is going to be huge. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can normalise it right up. And,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you were using Lewitt mics, weren't they? Which they know that a couple of those are quite high resolution as well.
High resolution.
Or high dynamic range.
Yes, very much so,
So
yeah.
you could get a good
Yeah.
match for these.
Yeah, yeah.
What, have you
Yeah,
got,
yeah,
can we
yeah.
listen to the drum track on its own? Just out of
Yeah,
interest?
drum track, yeah.
So
As
this,
I
is
mentioned,
this is the multi-track.
pretty rubbish drum kit with dead skins and,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
But, bit of reverb and compression on here, but let's just solo those toms a moment.
They sounded juicy, those toms.
They do.
So you're telling me you plugged them into the line inputs?
Yeah, offline inputs, no mic channels used at all.
And there was enough gain to get signal, but even though...
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
you're in a bit of the reverb on there too. But yeah.
And it worked fine. I suppose that's one of the... So, okay, so you're recording at 192 32-bit. What sort of file size ballooning do we talking about? That's a lot of stuff.
Right, so I had to upsample a song, like the demo, just as a reference into this project, and it went from around 55 meg to 510 megabytes.
In the upsample.
Upsampling. So like, yeah, so if
Right.
you're going to record at 32-bit, 192, plan for 10 times as much space.
How was the kind of whole process of using the Cubase integration? Did it kind of help or hinder?
Well, it was actually really good. You know, as I mentioned, go to the channel here, being able to sort of see your inputs coming in, seeing your metering, and being able to adjust the gains inside of Cubase in the inspector,
Right.
is a bit of a kind of pretty epic
And
thing.
did you record everything flat, or did you use some of the channel strips and EQ and stuff on the way in as well?
Right, the only thing we used on the way in was the silk.
Right.
And we pretty much used silk on everything, apart from the toms, because silk is only for the first 4 channels.
Right, okay.
But if we notice in this channel here, there's a little, we can swap this little switch here. If I had the channel strip or the compressor or the EQ here, I can make it
Post or pre? Right.
post or pre. So if I wanted to
you
record
could
it with
record.
that, you could.
So that's actually quite a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So the only other thing I was going to ask about was, have we got instrument inputs in here? Is there high Z stuff
Yeah, high Z on, high impedance inputs on the first 2 channels. Again, switchable from the software.
Ooh, there's a little relay going on there. yeah, we can hear that.
As I say, having phantom power as well as switches, because phantom power you do have to be mindful of, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So being able to power down the mics and stuff.
Is there? Are you sure on the 48?
No.
Always makes a bit nervous. That it would be like, are you sure that just needs a little dialogue box? I think that's quite an important. Maybe that's something they could introduce, because I think it's you put most mics are kind of okay with that, but sometimes you'll get something that will just kind of that's it. It's over. You don't want to really trash your mic based on clicking around with the wrong mouse. Yeah. And I'm speaking of recording real time. You're monitoring presumably through the DAW here. So is there a round trip latency? I mean, Thunderbolt's going to be pretty sharpish, but if we're talking 32-bit 3192 or even 384.
I mean it didn't feel just enabling the monitoring in the channel is exactly how we did it in this song, and there wasn't any noticeable latency at all. So that side of things I thought was very, very good. We're using, I've got on Cubase on the right hand side here this new area, that we can toggle with these switches here. This now allows you to have the control room on the one screen. So this volume control we were using as our monitor.
Can you
level.
do it with surround? Because I mean, we've got enough outputs here. Will it work in a surround mode as well?
Yeah,
so
you can
built in, so single knob for turning up your entire surround, right?
I'm assuming so. I haven't actually done that because I haven't got a surround sound system. However, Cubase has got pretty sort of
quite extensive
surround features.
I suppose we're getting to the point now. Is like it's a chunk of change. What's a couple of grand, isn't it?
Yes.
This thing with the Thunderbolt option. As you say, there might be a USB-C card coming along. Do you think? I mean, would you? I mean, because we're talking Apollo UAD kind of territory.
Yeah. I think these are Yamaha's top of the range preamps on here. This is their greatest preamps that they make for a digital interface. So, and like the old I say old, but the D pre's that you find on the cheaper models, they're really good preamps as well. We did find though during this recording that the transient sounded great. The tambourine. Yeah, the tambourine. Do you want to have a listen?
Test. Oh yeah.
So we've got a tambourine on here. And a tambourine is always a very challenging thing to record in terms of the sound having a...
Yeah, it can be.
You get like a kind of like a scrapey sound, but this
right, okay.
Nice.
And I mean, from what I heard of the mix, I mean, what I've heard of the mix in here,
yeah.
I mean, obviously what we heard on the video is mastered 16-bit.
Yes.
But there is an openness and a sort of a punch, isn't there?
Super punchy, definitely. It's difficult to know exactly where all of the quality is coming from. Is it the pre's? Is it recording at 192, 32-bit? You know, there's lots of elements there. What I would say is, though, that it does come together to give a very high quality
all that processing
recording.
headroom when you're EQing and stuff, and there's all that room to add extra gain and extra processing. Right?
I was surprised actually. Cubase's performance seemed to be pretty good. I mean, you know, if we were to play the song, we can see the monitor here. This is it's not a particularly up to date computer actually, but so there's our
that's the CPU
meter. If I jump forward, you'll see the hard drive. So there's still
plenty of headroom.
Yeah, so I was thinking it was going to bring my computer to its knees a little bit, working at that sample rate. And actually, no, it's been fine. It's just a question of it's going to gobble up a lot of space.
The thing is, when you've got a song that you know and everybody knows what they're doing, that's fine. It's when you don't know what you're doing and you're just kind of throwing loads of stuff in. That's where I guess it might...
Yeah, that's true.
Stumble.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean...
higher track counts and...
Yeah, I mean, what is the track count on here? It's quite a lot of tracks on here. 12, let's see, we're getting to 45, somewhere in, 48 tracks, I think.
Right, 48 tracks, 192.
Yeah, so it's...
Decent amount.
Not bad. But yeah, it comes together and it does sound really good. There's a lot of punch, there's a lot of clarity and definition between the sounds.
It's hard to explain, but it's almost like you can hear how tall people are and how where they are in space. It's quite an interesting. You get more stereo detail and more spatial detail, generally speaking.
And I do have to say, once I took it down to 44, it's always a little bit disappointing when you've been working at high sample rates and you bring it down to 44. There is a little bit of a loss. After,
a sense of loss.
Of loss. However, there's a nice amount of detail and punch has made it through. So I would reckon
it's worth doing if you can.
Because you will actually. It's a bit like if you do like a 1080, if you do 4K on a 1080 screen with computer games, they look better down sampled. I think something like that happens. That there is more information in there.
So this is available now.
Yes, it is.
I mean, what would you recommend this to someone looking for a high-end interface, or is it really more geared if you're already a Cubase or Nuendo user?
Right, very good question. If you're a Cubase user, I think and are looking for an interface that is essentially an installed interface, not one that you're planning on taking around with you. So I guess if you're a Cubase or Nuendo user and you're looking for a high-end audio that's got plenty of connectivity and lots of ways to integrate into the software, then this is a great choice.
Well, it should be mentioned that you can stack up to 3 of these.
Yes, you can.
If you need higher I/O count, you can
3, just because there's 2 Thunderbolt ports on the back there, so you can just daisy chain and you can have so you can have 3. So then so you got your higher track counts then, which is good. So yes, in those particular situations, it's highly recommended. I think if you're not a Cubase user, I think the
added value is a bit.
The added value is not as.
Although we should point out this will work on
everything.
The control panel software runs separately to the DAW, so you can just work it like a traditional. DAW kind of audio interface. It'll work the same way.
Yeah, and I think
you get the DSP as well.
Yeah, and you can use the DSP with everything. But there is, as I say, this added thing of this integration into Cubase.
That's quite a detractive thing, actually, isn't it? Just removing one more thing. So, Gaz, thank you very much for going to all that trouble, recording the track, doing all the filming. This was all done solo, so thank you very much for that. That was the Steinberg AXR4, which is available now.
Yes.
Price is, I think it was around about 2,000 quid. So other currencies will scroll below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.